All right, so I want to do intense on growing lettuce, focusing on multi-cut lettuce, which is Salanova, and there's also some other competitors now. So let's start with from seed. There's really two ways to do it, and that's, doing it in a tray where you're going to hand transplant it. And here I have it in it's a 72 tray, which just means 72 cells, 72 heads of lettuce. And this will just be hand transplanted. We'll make a grid and it will be transplanted into the beds. The other way to plant it is with the paper pot. And this is going to depend. So if I'm hand transplanting it, then I'm doing it in the same trays all the time, even though I'm going to do a 4x4, which you can imagine 4 lines by 4 lines on a bed. And then that's if I'm doing a lettuce mix, right, where I'm cutting the lettuce in the bed, cutting each head. That's going to be a 4x4 spacing. If I'm doing lettuce heads, then I like a 3x3, right? And that'll be 3 lines by 3 lines, right? So it's just more spacing for lettuce heads. And Salanova or multi-cut lettuce, that can be done either way. You can do either head lettuce or a mix. So here it is in a paper pot, and this is right, it comes in a 2, a 4, and a 6 inches between the pots. This is done in a 4-inch paper pot, but every other cell. And you can just hand seed it that way. We do the first 2 rows, skip the next 2 rows, then the next 2 rows, and that'll make it every other cell. And then you'll have 8 inches apart, and that's really perfect for head lettuce, right? With that spacing, you get 8 inches apart. It's really the farthest you can do, I think, in a paper pot that makes sense. If you're doing lettuce mix, where you're cutting the heads and you're cutting the leaves off the heads, then what you can do is do it in a 6-inch paper pot every cell, and then do 4 rows per 30-inch bed. And that makes a really nice setup for cutting the lettuce. Now, I like to grow out my lettuce pretty big before I plant it, but lettuce doesn't hold a long time, so you really just have like a 10-day window to plant it in. And here you can see it's as big as you want to get it, and this is probably where it starts, right? So the window is from here to here on when you plant this stuff. Now you have a choice between planting this in the field or planting it inside, or planting it into plastic or landscape fabric, or planting it on bare soil. I always prefer bare soil. Bare soil is going to have some problems with splash against your lettuce, so your lettuce will be dirtier. It may have more problems, but I find that plastic comes with its own problems, and you certainly couldn't do a paper pot method if you were doing plastic. So I like to plant in bare soil. And any problems that I do have, I just put up with outside, but I'm moving all my lettuce indoors, or most of it, and that will stop pretty much all those problems, and then have it on drip. Because lettuce is prone to fungal problems, and that's if it's just wet and it's high humidity all the time. It's really bad for it. So growing it inside on drip is the way to go. Any sort of covering that you can have over it is just going to increase production. Even if it's an open caterpillar tunnel, will increase production on it and keep the rain off of it. An open caterpillar tunnel will also enable you to shade it, because lettuce doesn't like it when it's really too hot. And so going back to seeding it, we put lettuce at the bottom of the germination chamber, and before we had a germ chamber, we would just stick it in the barn. You could stick it in the basement. So during the heat of summer, you can germinate it no problem. Just throw it in a barn, the garage, anywhere it's just cooler, and you're going to get perfect germination. You don't need to worry about it. But once it's outside and growing, your best bet is either to shade it or find heat-resistant varieties, which aren't going to bolt really fast, because that's what's going to happen. They're going to grow badly, or they're going to bolt really fast in the heat. So that can you can either stop that through shade or heat tolerant varieties, which there's a lot of them. Just check the description and they're going to help a lot. Harvesting them, we use a Johnny's Harvest lettuce knife, which is the yellow with a sort of an angle cut, and that's just for the head lettuce. We'll use that for harvesting head lettuce, and then a regular serrated knife for cutting it for a mix. And you can get 3 to 4 cuttings out of the head before you have to turn that bed over. And that's going to change in the summer. You're going to get a little less in the summer and maybe get a little bit more in the winter. And so for the head lettuce, to process it, the head lettuce comes in, it goes in a tank into very, very cold water, just gets dipped and then gets straight into a tote. And then we just, clean it up a little bit. If it doesn't need to be cleaned up, it goes straight in a tote. For the lettuce mix, it goes into a tank, gets bubbled, gets spun dry, and then gets into whatever packaging it's going to go into for market. And then you store it at anything 34 degrees to 40 degrees, and it should store anywhere from 10 to 14 days. And I wanted to show these two. Right here we have, this is your classic Salanova. And one thing I do is I always keep it in a mix because I want to harvest it in a mix, I want to pack it in a mix, so it's just better to have it already mixed. The reason this isn't mixed up is because I'm trying the multi-cut lettuce from High Mowing and seeing how that works. It's already really, really pretty. It looks very old school, the old school type of lettuce that we used to grow with, when we direct seed the beds and put it in 12 rows across. It has that color to it. So later this summer, I'll do a video on how it looks and how it grows and its comparison to Salanova, because I'd like to kind of, mix it up a little bit. Salanova is getting a little boring, not for customers, but just for me. It's one reason I'm not a lettuce farm, is because doing a lot of lettuce would be, too brain-numbingly boring. So, make sure you subscribe so that you get notified when that comes out about, the comparison between the two and how well it worked for us, and whether it's, a reasonable thing to switch over partly or maybe totally or not at all.